Yeah, just want to briefly say appreciate everyone dropping in this morning. I know we're all busy. We always got stuff going on, so I always appreciate everyone's time to be able to, drop in and listen to a little spiel from us. So I really appreciate that, guys. Yeah, just a brief intro of myself. My name is Bijan Nyakon. I'm a technical account manager on Altair's aerospace team, and I'm based out of our Dallas office, supporting some of our customers around here. And my background is in structural analysis and optimization, as well as simulation-driven design, workflows and methods and things of that nature. So yeah, I've been with Altair about 3 years in total now. So I'm excited to give you guys our first little demo here for our Altair Aerospace Coffee Break series. So this will just be, episode one in I think a large series of vast topics regarding aerospace simulation that I think will be very exciting. So just a FYI for the scope of this session, today's session, and for our coming sessions in the next few weeks, we're going to be focused on our main flagship tool, which is, if I can get my slide to go, which is HyperMesh, which is in our HyperWorks suite. So this is just one of our basically three pillars that we handle now, in addition to high power computing and data analysis. So, anything really regarding any type of simulation, whether it's structural simulation, EM simulation, maybe particle-based simulations, CFD, all that stuff, we play in those fields. So, and we're more than happy to expand the scope of these sessions into all of those different fields. So definitely feel free, I encourage you to go to our site for this page, or for the series, I should say, and submit, recommending topics you're interested in us showing to you. Again, it doesn't have to be part of our HyperWorks branch of simulation tools and products. HyperMesh being our sort of flagship pre-processing tool that's helped us get established and get a good strong good foothold in the aerospace community, mostly for our model build and meshing capabilities. So that's what we're gonna be taking a look at today and in the coming weeks. So first off, we want to describe and talk a little bit about the interface and why we've made such significant changes to the interface of HyperMesh recently. So some of you may be new to HyperMesh, and that's awesome. Some of you may be coming from our classic interface and maybe are a little bit confused over some of the decisions we've made, or maybe you're just kind of curious to see how the new interface looks and what our sort of new methodologies are for this new interface. So a big push for moving to this new interface was getting all of our tools basically consolidated under a common interface. We're trying to push more and more people to use more different simulation tools for different aspects of their problem. Like maybe they want to rope in compose to solve like a math problem based on some finite element model, something like that, right? By basically consolidating our interfaces into a common interface, it makes it a lot easier to be able to just quickly pick up some other tool and accomplish whatever you need for your problem. So that's a big, one of the big drives of this new interface that I'm going to be showing today. Okay. And in addition to that, it also enables us to really delve forward into the future of simulation engineering. So it allows us to, get into modularization, like I was saying, kind of find pieces together using different tools to piece together the solution to your problem. It also allows us to, start establishing common libraries. We're also, and we're going to be demoing this in a few weeks here, but it has facilitated us to be able to implement a Python API that's going to really expand the amount of automation you can do and the ease of the automation you can do in HyperMesh. So I think that will be really exciting. And we also got, a bunch of new developments in the cloud realm. And it also is facilitating us to really delve into the future of AI-based engineering simulation. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be showing you guys in the coming months. Things like, using AI to classify and mash together parts based on similarity, classification of the topology of those parts, which is pretty cool. And other things, like calculating even physics of new designs and new parts based on historical data from similar parts. So tons of cool stuff there that this transition to this new interface has facilitated for us. So I think that'll be really cool and exciting to not only show you guys, but to kind of have it back and forth with you guys throughout this series. We'll jump into the software. Okay. And I'm going to be showing the interface in our actually brand new release that just came out like a week or two ago, HyperWorks 2025. Okay, let's get everything. There we go. Make sure we can see this. Okay. So when you open up a HyperWorks section, it'll give you this like little preview box, which you can say, don't show me this if you want. But I like this because it gives you your recent models that you just opened, your whatever, whether you want to do HyperMesh for pre-processing, HyperView for post, etc. Determine your solver profile, what solver you want to build a model for. So I like to keep this little splash page open. I find it just makes it easier for me. Okay. So I'm going to open up a little wing model that I have. It's a nifty little model, not really that little, but full model I like to use that has a bunch of different, entities, different loads, different element types, things like that. That's fun to play around with. And first thing to note while we're loading up this model, as I'm being blinded here, this is reminding me that I typically have dark mode set. So I know a lot of people like to have dark mode. So in the preferences, you have this theme mode option where you can change it to white, light, dark, and it'll default to automatic. So it'll use your system settings, which is pretty nice, I think. So if you have like dark mode or light mode set in your settings on your machine, it'll pick up that setting. But just for this demo, I'll use the white theme. All right. So yeah, here we have our HyperMesh interface. I got some things I'm going to close here because these are spoiling something I want to cover later. But yeah, this is our new HyperMesh interface. So of course we have our GUI in the middle. I already have my model loaded in from that splash screen where I just said open my recent model. So that's what we're looking at here. So this is some finite element model of a wing, with different pressures and boundary conditions and things of that nature. Okay, so of course we have the GUI or the graphical user interface right here in the center. Yeah, right clicking is pan, middle clicking is rotate. I'm not going to go through all the weeds of all the mouse controls here. Yeah, you can move around your model. You of course have all the file drop-down options to bring in, whether you want to bring in some geometry model, like some CAD model, you can do that here. You can bring in a solver deck, like an input deck. Defining your model, defining your mesh, boundary conditions, things like that. And you can also load in your results to do some post-processing in HyperMesh now as well, some basic post-processing. So that's cool. And, a few other things, you can set your solver interface. So again, if you want to build a model for Nashtran, Abacus, ANSYS, HyperMesh is solver neutral. So, we facilitate model building of really for any of those solvers. So you can set that here. And you can, convert, export, all that good stuff, save, kind of your standard file drop-down stuff. And then, like I showed kind of briefly before, you have a bunch of preferences where you can control things like load size, various preferences, color preferences, and then things like that. All right. Cool. And in addition to the file options, you also got some file, new, open, save here. But you can also drag and drop files into HyperMesh now in the new interface, which I think is pretty neat. So like if I wanted, I could like come in and just drag and drop this .hm file or the .fem, the input deck. And it will just say, hey, do you want to load up a fresh new model here or merge into the current result? So it makes it a lot easier. I think, like in our classic interface, you kind of had to hunt for the file path of where you saved your models. So, now as long as you have a window open with your models, you can just drag and drop it in. Cool. So yeah, layout wise, some of you coming from the classic interface may be used to at the bottom, we would have like panels of tools. So now all of our tools are organized in what we call ribbons up here. ribbons, and you got like groups and icons. And we try to order these kind of like in order of how you might go about model building. So, starting with a sketch, maybe turning that sketch into geometry, 1D, 2D, 3D meshing, and then, various kind of model building um, options and tools. So that's the sort of thought process there, kind of trying to help coax the order of your model build. But of course, the order is ultimately up to you. Um, and you can also create your own ribbons as well. So you can hit this little plus guy, custom, and you can just drag and drop. Like if there's only a few tools across different ribbons that you're using. So like a good example will be if you're doing like a lot of hex meshing, maybe you would be extruding elements a lot. Maybe you would be defeaturing a lot. You can just drag and drop the um, specific tools that you need into that custom ribbon so that you don't have to kind of switch back and forth. So that's pretty nice. We give you guys a lot of customization options now, which I think is pretty neat and pretty helpful. So in addition to the ribbons, or I should say first, and you'll notice, in these ribbons, we have a lot of icons that have sub icons or tools that have sub icons, I should say. So like a good example is the files icon. Depending on where you hover your cursor, it will prompt you to create a new session, open a new model, or save your model. And it'll sort of highlight. And if you hover your cursor there long enough, it'll kind of give you a preview of which sub icon you're selecting. And these little dots here, this was added, I believe, in R24 version. But these little dots here denote how many sub icons that tool has. Just a little helpful tip. Okay. And then you also have some with a little chevron that have like different, sub options and sub tools within there. All right. Let me see. And yeah, in addition to the tools, let's see. Another big thing that I think was really huge in this new interface here was our elevation of help and documentation and helpful videos. So, a lot of times people in the past would have trouble kind of getting good documentation for the tool they were curious about. But now, if you go to view, if you make sure you turn on workflow help, you can see if you go to like any tool, there'll be this drop down. Most tools have this, but there are some like kind of niche tools that don't. But it'll have this little chevron drop down that'll give you a brief little explanation of how the tool works, extrude surfaces by a vector. And then a lot of these tools now will have this little video icon that'll give you a nice little, neat little, tooltip, little video. Let me make sure this is sharing. Yeah, it looks like it's coming through. Yeah, I think this is huge. This is pretty helpful, especially for new users, learning the interface, trying to get into finite element modeling. These little these little embedded videos I think are very nice. And then you, of course, like it says here, you can always hit F1 from the tool and it'll bring up if I can show real quick. Help. Okay. All right, so another thing I wanted to show, so this is kind of the ribbon layout. If you're not a fan of the ribbon layout, we also have what we call tool belt. So if you hold Alt and right click, this will bring up one of the tool belts. And this, if I remember right, is the geometry tool belt. Yep. So various geometry defeaturing, geometry editing, mid-surfacing over here, things like that. So I'm still just holding Alt, but now if I hold Alt and Control, it'll shift to a different. A lot of people find this, a little bit faster. They can use, they remember the combinations of, Alt and Control. So you can use this for accessing tools as well, and you can configure this. So like if there's any tools in here that you don't use, you can just drag and drop them into the little trash can. So, you know, hopefully you're noticing, and no, I will not say those changes. Hopefully you're noticing how many options we give you guys now for various customizations of, your interface and your options to make things easier for you guys. Okay, so in addition to that, you'll also notice here I have my browser. So this is my model tree in particular that just has all of my information about my model, like all my elements, all my properties, materials, loads, things like that. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here because we're going to really delve into all the cool stuff you can do with browsers now. But yeah, briefly, you can, one thing we've added elements and geometry into the browser now. So it's really nice, really easy to be able to like kind of go in and hide or isolate by some element type or some geometry type. So it makes it a lot kind of easier to go through your model. And then we also have now contextual browsers. So for example, if I double click on the materials folder, double click, that gives me this materials browser. And what you can do, which you can see I've already done here, you can right click and you can turn on certain parameters that you want to add to basically a table. So this way you can, like for example here, I added modulus as a field. We've added Poisson's ratio as well, and density. So that way you can filter by these values, you can sort by these values, you can even just go in and edit these values directly in a table sort of format. So really cool. We're again gonna really go into the weeds there when we cover browsers in one of our future topics. Okay, let me see here. Ribbons, camera. Okay, another thing I wanted to show was the guide bars. So you probably saw briefly when I was in the extrude option. And let me just to demonstrate this, let me bring up some CAD, like maybe just my solids here. It's like, okay. So like, let's say I wanted to like drag out some face, like maybe this face. So now the tools, and again, we used to have define the tools in what we would call panels, but now we have what we call guide bars. I'm biased, but I think these are a lot more intuitive, a lot easier to use. So with basically every guide bar, or most, I should say, most tools will have this little advanced option. So anytime you see this little like 3 lines, this little hamburger button here, as we call it, that'll give you some extra options for whatever tool you're using. And again, I already mentioned this, but you have the little chevron for some basic help, and then a little video. And then you have in the guide bar these fields for selecting, what you want to use this tool on. In this case, I'm extruding some surface. If I wanted to, I can click on the drop down and maybe change to like lines or locations. Location just being really anywhere in 3D space that you click. But let's say I want surfaces. Maybe I'll drag out this surface here. Whoop. What that does is it brings up the micro dialog, or you could say mini guide bar, I guess, that a lot of tools will bring up for like some, additional kind of specifications of whatever operation you're using this tool for. In this case, in extrusion, so I could, like specify the specific extrusion amount. Okay. And then if I wanted to, I could have hit these 3 little dots to bring up advanced selection. So I could select surfaces by all the surfaces in some collector, surfaces by ID, by some plane, and I could define like a thickness, and it would grab all the surfaces within that thickness of the plane. So yeah, anytime you see these little 3 dots, that's just a giving you advanced, like more different types of ways to select whatever that entity is, in this case, surfaces. So it's just giving me different ways to select surfaces. Okay. And there's keyboard shortcuts for all of this that we're going to go into more detail on also in another coming demo, but you can really get fast with this stuff. And then, just kind of clicking to the next field, this would give us, now our option to select a line to define the guide. So I could, like select some line like this, for example. And then I can hit this little play guy. I can hit this like backwards play. That'll just like remove my selection of my guide. Boop. Um, let's define that again. And oh, I clicked too fast. I actually completed the operation, but from there I could do 100. And from there you can hit play. That'll still keep you in the tool, so you can kind of go through and make more extrusions. Or if you're done with this tool and you want to extrude, you can just hit the green check mark. Or if you want to say, undo, I don't want this, you can hit the red X. So yeah, that's the guide bar. Again, you can get really fast with that with keyboard shortcuts. So I'm pretty excited for that demo whenever we get there. Okay, so let me see here. We covered guide bars. Excellent. And we covered browsers. So one thing, and you may not see the entity editor there by default. So if you go view, you can open up the entity editor, and the entity editor is just what it sounds like. It just gives you the option to edit whatever entity it is in your model, whether those are the material stiffness or the thickness of some shell property or some load magnitude, whatever it is. The entity editor lets you edit those options, and you can like right click on something. Let me do show all here. So you can like select something in the browser to edit it that way. You can just select something. Oh, all right. Let me just show like maybe shells. But okay, what was I? So yeah, you can select objects in the GUI now, like directly in the interface, which I think is nice. And it's all connected. So the browser is connected to the GUI, vice versa. So, like for example, if I wanted to maybe go to materials and maybe like edit this material, I can just select it and it brings up my option in the browser. So I can, then go in and say, change this to whatever, 80,000. So that's the entity editor. Something you'll probably notice here, like as I change to materials or to all or to properties, it's changing my visualization. So what am I talking about here? So that's just part of, or one of the visualization options that you have down here at the bottom. So I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but you got a bunch of different options for like creating a specific view. Like if you're kind of referencing back to a specific view of your model, you can use this little guy here. Very easy to create new views as well. You can visualize, for example, like if you have some 1D beams with like a cross section defined or shells with a thickness defined, you can use these options here to actually visualize those thicknesses or those cross sections. And you can control here, whether you have like a wireframe or shaded mesh, create section cuts, all sorts of things. So yeah, we'll likely be kind of going through those in a little more detail at a later date. But for now, let's see, running low on time. So there's a few other things I wanted to show. We also have now extensions that's new to our new interface. So like if you go File, Extensions, you can use these extensions. For example, if you have a bunch of scripts that you use commonly all the time, you can create your own ribbon with your tools with whatever icons you want. So you can like upload an image to define those icons, and you can, like I mentioned, you can have like a ribbon with your own little like custom tool set, which is pretty cool. Let me turn on like an example here, extension demo, and the visualization toolbar as well. So yeah, the extension demo. So here's like an example, right? These are some new tools that you can just create on your own and assign them to some script or tool. And you can also do like drop downs as well. So I'm a big fan of the extensions, and I know a lot of people really like this visualization toolbar extension that you can access on our Altair community. There we go. So, a lot of people, and I kind of understand, are like, hey, what gives? Why do you have to hit two buttons to visualize thickness? So with this extension now, I can just do that in one button. So saves me a few button clicks, which is nice. Okay, and I can like undock and redock this wherever I like. Yay. So extensions, really cool. We can cover that in more detail as well, if you guys are interested. Okay. Um, so yeah, running a little short on time. There's a bunch of other stuff we got. Different windows that you can kind of divide up your windows by, so you can have like sort of two synced up or not synced up HyperMesh models, or you can maybe have like a HyperMesh model, HyperView model, and then a HyperGraph model, kind of all loaded up at the same time. So I think that's pretty neat. You can search for tools, so you can hit this little magnifying glass or just Control F, and you can search for a tool, like ruled, and it'll just bring the tool right up when you click on it. Big fan, personally. That one. But you got Find, let's see, Windows. I didn't really touch on this, but you can really do a lot with the selector here. Again, we're going to demo this in more detail later, but you can use the selector for a bunch of different things. Also as like basically an advanced selection method. So like if I wanted to select all the elements in this component, I could go hit this drop down, change my selection to elements, hit the advanced selection, and then grab that component. And okay, now I have to find all my elements in my component. Or you could go components and then hit E for like a quick change, or you can hit the drop down, go elements. Now I've selected all the elements in that component. So there's a lot of stuff like that now where there's a few different ways you can do it depending on your preference, what you find easier and faster for yourself. So yeah, let's see here. So yeah, some questions. No, we don't have options to hide the ribbon icons. We are working on being able to like reduce the size of the icons. I know that's something a lot of people have asked about. And yeah, when you have more than one page, you can actually like use this little drag guide to reorder your pages. Should let me do this with like a blank page, but yeah, you can just like whoop, use that little drag guy. Might need to have another model loaded here, maybe. Yeah, that basically covers what I wanted to show here for you guys. Again, I'd like to definitely go through it in more detail in the coming sessions, looking at browsers, looking at selections, keyboard shortcuts, all this stuff to make you guys faster. We'll be delving into. There we go. Whoop. So yeah, some good questions. If we're good on questions, then I'll go ahead and let you guys go about the rest of your day. If you have any other questions, any feedback, again, topics you'd like to see in more detail, really anything of that nature, please feel free to submit it in the survey on the website. And yeah, we'll be happy to take any comments from you guys into consideration for the rest of the series. So appreciate you guys' time and hope you guys all have a good rest of your day. Thank you.